This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Welcome to News 9 and you are watching On Point. Today we have 3 On Points. In the first On Point, we look at 50 years of declaration of emergency by former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. In the second On Point, we look at how the Pentagon has busted Trump's bunker buster claims. In the third On Point, we look at how New York is all set to get its first Muslim mayor. And let's take a quick look at the headlines. Amit Shah unveils the emergency diaries at Samvidhan Hatya Diwas event, says Congress should apologize for imposing emergency. CBSE rolls out major change for class 10 students to take board exams twice a year from 2026. Shashi Tharoor hits back at Congress with a cryptic post on X. Post reads, "Don't ask permission to fly, sky belongs to no one." Cloudburst in Kullu triggers major floods, 3 people swept away. Trump rules out possibility of Iran rebuilding its nuclear program, says Iran won't be able to develop a nuclear bomb for long. Iran to suspend cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, accuses IAEA of leaking information on nuclear sites. Akali the leader, Bikram Majitia, arrested by Punjab Vigilance Department. NASA launches Axiom 4 space mission. Subhanshu Shukla becomes second Indian astronaut to travel to space. Supreme Court seeks Madhya Pradesh reply on 27 OBC quota implementation. The emergency war has begun. India marks 50 years of the imposition of the emergency by then late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Prime Minister Modi and Bharatiya Janata Party called it the Samvidhan Hatya Diwas. The Congress hit back with its undeclared emergency jibe. Indira Gandhi announced emergency after the Allahabad High Court found her guilty under the Representation of People Act 1951 and disqualified her from holding any election or elected office for 6 years. During the emergency declared by former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi from June 25th, 1975 to March 21st, 1977, fundamental freedoms and democratic norms were suspended. The right to habeas corpus, which allows individuals to challenge unlawful detention, was curtailed. This was part of the suspension of fundamental rights and civil liberties declared by the state. So what did Indira Gandhi do? Article 14, Article 19, Article 21 and 22 of the Constitution guaranteeing equality before the law, freedom of speech, protection against arbitrary arrest and personal liberty suspended. Free censorship was imposed on the press, newspaper required to get government approval before publishing. People detained without trial under law like Maintenance of Internal Security Act. Over 1 lakh people, including entire opposition, arrested. Citizens, including writers and intellectuals, reported being monitored with phones tapped. Under the influence of Sanjay Gandhi, mass sterilization drives were carried out coercively. On Wednesday, on 50 years of emergency, Prime Minister Modi called the imposition of emergency the darkest chapter in Indian history. He said the values enshrined in the Constitution were set aside during emergency. It was as if the Congress at that time placed democracy under arrest. The Union Cabinet on Wednesday passed a resolution to condemn the imposition of emergency in 75.
The year 2025 marks 50 years of the Samvidhan Hatya Diwas, an unforgettable chapter in the history of India where the constitution was subverted, the republic and democratic spirit of India was attacked, federalism was undermined, and fundamental rights, human liberty and dignity were suspended. The Union Cabinet reaffirmed that the people of India continue to repose unflinching faith in the Indian Constitution and the resilience of the country's democratic ethos. It is as important for the young as it is for the old to draw inspiration from those who resisted dictatorial tendencies and stood firm to defend our Constitution and its democratic fabric.
Calling the anniversary of the emergency as Samvidhan Hatya Diwas, Union Minister and BJP National President JP Nadda launched a scathing attack on the Congress, accusing it of continuing to carry the same dictatorial mindset that marked 21-month emergency imposed by Indira Gandhi.
25 तारीख को आपातकाल लगाया गया। कारण तो कहा कि राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा खतरे में है, परंतु पूरी दुनिया अब जानती है राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा को कुछ नहीं हुआ था, उनकी कुर्सी खतरे में थी। जेपी के संपूर्ण क्रांति के नारे ने पूरे देश को झंझोड़ कर रख दिया था।
25 जून 1975 की आधी रात को तत्कालीन प्रधानमंत्री इंदिरा गांधी ने आंतरिक अशांति का बहाना बनाकर भारत पर आपातकाल थोप दिया था और देश के संविधान की हत्या कर दी थी। 50 वर्ष बाद भी कांग्रेस उसी मानसिकता के साथ जी रही है। उसकी नीयत आज भी वैसी ही तानाशाही वाली है।
Addressing a press conference at the Congress Indira Bhavan, Party President Kharge slammed BJP RSS and said those who played no role in the independence of the country in framing the constitution and rejected Balasaheb Ambedkar's constitution are raking up emergency. And he quoted Baba Saheb Ambedkar.
जिनका देश की आजादी के आंदोलन में कोई योगदान नहीं रहा और जिनका संविधान निर्माण में कोई योगदान नहीं रहा, उनके कोई लोग इस संविधान को बनाने में कोऑपरेट नहीं किए, तो हमेशा संविधान के खिलाफ बात करते गए और जो संविधान बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर, पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी और सभी ने, कांग्रेस के नेताओं ने कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में बहुत दिन तक बहस करके एक संविधान तैयार किया था, उस संविधान को भी उन्होंने रामलीला मैदान में जलाया।
On this issue, I'm joined by Dr. A. Surya Prakash, former chairman, Prasar Bharati, a veteran journalist. I'm joined by Ajay Bose, author and political commentator, Dr. Kaushal Kant Mishra, spokesperson, Bharatiya Janata Party, and advocate Ashpreet Khandiyal, spokesperson, Congress Party. Thank you both of you, both the spokespersons from BJP and Congress for joining me. Let me go to first Dr. Surya Prakash. And my question is very plain, sir. क्या देश में अघोषित आपातकाल है या the memories of emergency have again become very relevant for the political discourse?
I think what happened between 75-77 should never be forgotten. If we forget it, there is every danger of us facing this all over again in some form or the other. Let there be no confusion about that. Secondly, when you say Aghoshit, what is it? Aghoshit.
That is what Mallikarjun Kharge said. I am not saying it.
Yeah. Somebody has said that. Let me respond to that. You know, people who will start a hashtag, suppose this is the insinuation against the Prime Minister, I will say those who start a hashtag in the morning saying horrible Prime Minister, worst Prime Minister of India, etc., will come to India International Center at 4 o'clock and deliver a lecture on how freedom of expression is under grave threat. And from morning after he puts out his tweet, there will be hundreds of people joining him and agreeing with him, because there is some section of the people who are opposed to this Prime Minister and this dispensation. Now, is that an undeclared emergency? Look, just go to Twitter this morning actually and look at the abuse that's being hurled at Mr. Narendra Modi. Actually, if you say there is undeclared emergency, I will say it is there in some states like West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and so on. So let's be clear about these things. Secondly, Article 14, equality before law, equal protection of law. Article 15, no discrimination against anybody. Article 25, your freedom of conscience, right to profess, practice, propagate religion. Article 26, 29, 30. Article 21, everything is absolutely alive, and these are articles that are being enforced by people. And just look at the Supreme Court and High Court judgments in the last 2-3 months. So what is it? What is this comparison with what happened 50 years ago? That was a fascist regime. I was with the Indian Express in Bangalore at that time. Incidentally, I'm in Bangalore today on some other, on some engagement. And when I remember that morning, I was horrified at the stillness all over the place and what had happened. Overnight, a vibrant democracy had been turned into a fascist state. And when we want to remember that, all kinds of other excuses are being brought. This is utter nonsense.
Okay. Mr. Bose, how should emergency be remembered?
Well, I've been, Surya, of course, is a very old, dear friend of mine. And it's interesting because he was actually posted in Bangalore, where I was in Delhi, the heart of the emergency. And in Karnataka, really, the emergency wasn't, that ferocious as it was in Delhi. And that can be seen from the results from the 1977 elections, where Mrs. Gandhi actually and the emergency and the Congress did rather well in 77. And of course, it got wiped out in northern India. But when I remember the emergency, I do remember, because we were city reporters those days, and John Dayal and I were colleagues in a newspaper called Patriot, which was initially actually quite close to the emergency regime, although all the reporters and correspondents and some of the editors were quite against it. But I remember the sheer sense of dread, because the entire opposition had been arrested. There was actual censorship. So you couldn't write anything. And as the emergency regime spread its wings and Sanjay Gandhi acquired this kind of power, which was totally unconstitutional, because he had no really position of power. And he and his coterie, as it was called, started these programs, first with the demolitions to beautify Delhi. So colony after colony, slum after slum was razed by bulldozers. And then, of course, the forced sterilizations, a completely absurd, aberration of the family planning program, which was, of course, very laudable policy. So that is one thing which, of course, I remember. But at the same time, many people actually compare the current situation with the emergency. And I would say that it would be silly to draw direct parallels, because the emergency was something completely different, because legally everything was banned. And honestly, after the emergency went, I remember discussing this with my good friend Mark Tully of the BBC, that do you think this could ever happen again? Do you think the press could get muzzled again? Do you think that judges would completely, be at the mercy of the government? And we both decided that this could really very, very unlikely. And indeed, for several years, particularly during the coalition era, this was true. And the media was extremely free. But today, I'm afraid I disagree with Surya Prakash. We see the insidious corruption or corrosion of certain democratic processes. We see the mainstream media behaving in a manner which was a lot like the emergency. Although the emergency, there was a legal censorship on it. Now, this is a very insidious, there's no law which is preventing them from criticizing the government on many, many issues, but they're very scared, and in fact, they are more loyal than the king sometimes. And they praise the government even when they're not asked. So, sometimes Mr. Advani had this lovely thing that during the emergency, journalists were asked to bend and they crawled. So sometimes I see this happening in front of my eyes.
Okay.
So it is very worrying and disturbing that although this is certainly not comparable to the emergency, which was completely different when the opposition was, behind bars, but there are worries and disturbing trends that the impact of the present situation could be similar.
Okay. Let me take opening comments from both the spokespersons. Let me take opening comment from Dr. Kaushal Khan Mishra to you first, and then I'll go to the Congress spokesperson. Your opening comment, sir.
कार्तिकेय जी, ओपनिंग कमेंट में मैं एक कविता बोलूंगा कि जल से पतला कौन है, कौन भूमि से भारी, कौन अग्नि से तेज है, कौन काजल से काली। तो इसका जवाब है कि जल से पतला ज्ञान है, पाप भूमि से भारी, क्रोध अग्नि से तेज है, कलंक काजल से काली। तो ये कांग्रेस के चेहरे पे जो कलंक इमरजेंसी का लगा हुआ है और जिसके बारे में दर्जनों किताबें लिखी जा चुकी हैं आप लोगों के ही द्वारा, पत्रकारों के द्वारा, एक ऐसा समय था कि जब बिना इंफॉर्मेशन के रात में एक ऑर्डर आता है और बहुत सारे मीडिया हाउसेस की बिजली काट दी जाती है, बहुत सारे विपक्षी नेताओं को जेल में डाल दिया जाता है, मीसा का कानून लग जाता है, बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जिनको इन्यूमरस बताया जा सकता है। और वो सब सिर्फ इसलिए क्योंकि कांग्रेस की एक फैमिली को अपनी सत्ता से इतना प्यार है कि वो देश को इमरजेंसी जैसे आपातकाल जैसे दृश्य को दिखाने के लिए मजबूर हो जाती, क्योंकि उसको सत्ता से प्यार है। तो ये जो कलंक है ना इमरजेंसी का, कांग्रेस कितनी भी कोशिश कर ले, आज कांग्रेस के लीडर राहुल गांधी, उत्तराधिकारी कांग्रेस के, अपने हाथ में किताब लेके घूमते हैं। ये वही संविधान है जिसकी इन्होंने आज से 50 साल पहले हत्या की थी। आपके सामने आपका पाप दोबारा मुंह खोल के खड़ा होता है क्योंकि आपने उसके साथ ऐसा काम किया होता है। तो ये कांग्रेस ने जो बोया है वही काट रही है, और अपने आप को बचाने और छुपाने के लिए कांग्रेस के नेता कुछ भी कह सकते हैं और वो कंटिन्यू चल रहा है। कांग्रेस पार्टी में आपातकाल उनके मेंबर्स के लिए हमेशा बना रहता है। चाहे आप देखिए कांग्रेस की लीडरशिप की बात करें, जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी बिना जीते हुए कांग्रेस के नेता बना दिए जाते हैं, वल्लभ भाई पटेल जी को हटा दिया जाता है। उसके बाद चलते हैं, एक गूंगी गुड़िया को इंदिरा इज इंडिया एंड इंडिया इज इंदिरा बना दिया जाता है। इस तरह चलने के बाद राहुल गांधी आते हैं, एक पायलट को देश का प्रधानमंत्री बना दिया जाता है। राहुल गांधी जी आते हैं, राहुल गांधी आकर के कानून के पार्ट अध्यादेश को अपने ही प्रधानमंत्री के द्वारा पास हुए अध्यादेश को फाड़ के फेंक देते हैं। उसके बाद भी अगर मनमोहन सिंह के ऊपर एक कमेटी बना दी जाती है, सोनिया गांधी जी उसको चलाती हैं, सुपर कैबिनेट की तरह काम करती हैं। तो कांग्रेस के लोगों को ये आदत है कि उन्हें इमरजेंसी अच्छी लगती है, लेकिन देश को उसकी आदत नहीं है। तो कांग्रेस को और पूरे देश को ये इमरजेंसी की याद दिलाना बहुत जरूरी, क्योंकि जो देश अपना इतिहास भूल जाता है उस देश का भविष्य को इतिहास भी भूल जाता है। इसलिए जरूरी है कि सबको मालूम होना चाहिए इमरजेंसी में क्या हुआ था।
Okay, important point. People should remember it. Mr. Khadiyal, your opening comments. Can you please unmute yourself?
Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Yes.
See, number one, since the last 11 years, there's been an undeclared emergency in India. And the Bharatiya Janata Party, in order to divert attention from the undeclared emergency, is trying to rake this up. Would the Bharatiya Janata Party care to answer a couple of questions? Now, what happens in an emergency is suspension of civil liberties. Now, would the Bharatiya Janata Party tell us why has Mr. Modi, for not a single time, for not once has visited Manipur? It's been burning since the last 2 years. So many incidents back to back have been happening. The law and order has been in shambles, but Mr. Modi did not have the time to visit Manipur even once. Is that what good governance is? Number two, the arrests that have been made through IT, ED, CBI, especially when there's an election, 95, the data, the statistics, they suggest that 95% of the opposition parties have been targeted by these central agencies. Number two, the conviction rate has gone down. Number three, the reason as to why the Bharatiya Janata Party has always dodged this question is because they have no answers to it. Because when we ask them, why is there not a single NDA ally who has an ED case? Why is there not a single BJP leader who has an ED case? They have no answer to it. Therefore, they try to come up with other things in order to dodge and deflect. Number three, the Bharatiya Janata Party ought to tell us the inflation, the unemployment, highest in the last 45 years, the corruption, the drug problem, the operational lotuses that they have been doing, the double engine argument of the Bharatiya Janata Party, that since we are in center, we would only work in the state if there is our government. They have stopped the RDF, the NHM, the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan Fund, the MDF, and so many more funds of Punjab because it's an opposition ruled state. And then vis-a-vis the budget, they have only helped their allies, whether it be Bihar, whether it be AP, because the Bharatiya Janata Party has always been accustomed to discriminating against the opposition ruled states. They have been undermining the federal structure. There has been no help given to the opposition ruled states, no relief packages, no disaster funds, no policies, no schemes. There's been no debate, discussion happening in the parliament. They have only been shoving it down the throats of people. They don't consult the stakeholders. They don't ask the stakeholders. Okay. They simply impose it on the stakeholders. My question to the Bharatiya Janata Party is, when the Supreme Court said that you would have to include the CJI in the selection committee for the election commission, you bypass that as well. And the Bharatiya Janata Party has no answer to the operational lotuses in Goa, Maharashtra, Manipur, AP, MP, and how many more states? Why does the Bharatiya Janata Party not tell us why Mr. Amit Shah and the party was saying, Ambedkar, the way they were talking about Mr. Ambedkar?
My debate was on emergency. You're pulling up other issues. My question is simple. Congress deployed Mallikarjun Kharge to speak on emergency. Why didn't Mr. Gandhi come?
Well,
he's always there on the most important of the subjects, sir.
Now answering a question. When Manipur was burning, why didn't Mr. Modi go there?
I'm not the spokesperson for Bharatiya Janata Party. You should be asking him. My job is to ask you. You should ask the BJP spokesperson, not me.
I'm asking the BJP. Exactly, I'm asking the BJP. Given that,
my question to you is very simple. And does Congress Party apologize for the emergency, sir?
See, Miss Indira Gandhi has back in the day apologized. My concern with the Bharatiya Janata Party is, when would Mr. Modi apologize for Manipur? When would Mr. Modi apologize for operational notices? When would Mr. Modi apologize for surpassing and bypassing the orders of the Supreme Court?
Okay.
When would the Bharatiya Janata Party apologize for undermining the federal structure?
Okay, I'll come to both of you. I'll come to both of you. Just be a little patient, Mr. Mishra. I'll give you time. I have a question for both Mr. Surya Prakash and Ajay Bose. I was reading Virendra Kapoor's article today in Indian Express. He seems to have made one point. Surya, I really want you, and because you said you were in Bangalore there, he said that the emergency had no impact post Vindhyas, and he said, the whole issue became less about rights and more about Nasbandi. Your comments?
Okay. First of all, the first thing the emergency regime did in Karnataka was to appoint the Inspector General of Police as the chief censor. So in Indian Express, everything we wrote and the editorials that came from Delhi, everything went to the chief censor. And do you know who the chief censor was? The Inspector General of Police, a man in uniform, was deciding the content of this newspaper, and he would cut out paragraphs and sentences and this, that, and the other. And he had police inspectors and some people from the information department to help him in that effort. And Indian Express was under pre-censorship. Are you comparing that with the situation today? I think we must be focused on what happened during the emergency for the following reasons. The first thing which I said, a man in uniform is sitting over my head and deciding what I will write or not write. Please reflect over that. Does that happen in a democracy? It's only in a dictatorship that such things happen. Secondly, Constitution Amendment number 39, which was passed by Lok Sabha on Thursday, and all rules were violated and brought to Rajya Sabha and passed by Rajya Sabha after an alleged debate for an hour or so on Friday, passed by over half the assemblies of the country on Saturday, and President's assent on Sunday, and gazetted on Sunday, all because the Supreme Court was to hear Indira Gandhi's petition on Monday morning. And the Attorney General stood up and said, my lord, you cannot hear this because we have passed the 39th Amendment, which bars the Supreme Court from looking into election petitions vis-a-vis the Prime Minister. Secondly, the 42nd Amendment. Two things about the 42nd Amendment, which is frightening, horrendous. One, they abolished quorum in Parliament, which means 2 or 3 MPs, a minister can move something, 2-3 MPs can pass it for the whole country. Secondly, the 42nd Amendment had a provision authorizing the president through an executive order to amend the constitution for 2 years. You know, it's such a complicated process, the amending the constitution, and the 42nd Amendment gave that right to the president for 2 years. Now, I don't want to go into all those things. I am not going to enter into that political debate. What I want to tell you is our constitution is intact. All of us have a responsibility, not just those in this panel. And I still remember Ajay Bose and John Dayal's book on the emergency, which gave us a lot of details of what happened in Delhi at that time. And I'm really very happy to be part of this debate.
Surya, before I let go of you, there's a question. Sir, there is a
last point is all of us have a responsibility, all citizens, to defend, protect this constitution of ours and to protect this democratic system of ours. About that, there be no doubt, no confusion.
My question to you is, why did, in your opinion then, judiciary, police, bureaucracy cave in? Why did they crumble away?
It's very tragic, and because we are such a vibrant democracy, we had never experienced something like this. So every institution got terrorized. That is why I tell you, now I see the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in my view, is upholding the Constitution, which is the responsibility given to it under the Constitution. And the institution is working, and our democratic framework is working. 50% of the states are run by political parties which are non-BJP, anti-BJP. What is this argument that democracy is under threat? I am unable to understand.
Okay, Ajay, my question to you, I made a reference to the Virendra Kapoor's article which I read, Kumi's husband. He said that somehow the results of emergency didn't cross Vindhyas. I want your comments on that. Because when the elections took place in 1980...
No, let me say that I think Virendra, who was jailed by the emergency regime, so he has no love lost for the emergency regime. Virendra, I think, is right to some extent, because I think that if you see the results in South India and you see the results in North India, there's such a huge contrast in 1977. But let me also point out, people call the stain of the emergency on the Congress. People forget that Indira Gandhi swept back to power in 1980. Rajiv Gandhi had a historic 400 plus majority in 1984 after the worst possible anti-Sikh riots. And I can tell you the horrors I've seen during the emergency pale into insignificance compared to the horrors I've seen in Delhi in 1984. By that time, Surya was in Delhi, so he would remember as well. Yeah. And then after that, the Congress came to power several times. After 1984 came the Narasimha Rao government, then Manmohan Singh came successive terms. So this so-called stain, we should not see people, public memory is short. Public memory, people forget. And that is why Mrs. Gandhi came back and she swept back to power. So politics is a strange business. So that is why let us not rush into branding any party with any permanent stain. Similarly, today, when the BJP says, well, if people dislike the Mr. Modi so much, or the erosion of democratic rights, or, the communalization of various institutions, but they vote him to power. But voting to power does not automatically mean, because ultimately the first past the post system means that last time there were 63.5% people who did not vote for Mr. Modi, and yet the BJP did not get a clear majority, but it managed to form the government. So I don't think that, I've been doing journalism more than half a century. So I've seen all these leaders. And some of the BJP leaders I was very close to, like Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I was personally close to. And I was a great admirer. But, the point is that ultimately we have to see that the poor people are the worst sufferers every time. And even today, the really poor people are who? The Dalits, the Muslims, and the lowest OBCs. These are about 60% of people in this country who are really absolutely downtrodden. And in some ways, even without the emergency, even without any particular oppression, they are at the beck and call of the local SHO. They face state oppression every day. Nobody listens to them. And nobody even, newspapers...
But Ajay, you didn't answer my question. Why didn't the effect travel across the Vindhyas?
Because there was no possible... The forcible sterilizations and the demolitions, there may have been censorship there. But it did not affect a large mass of poor people, in the South. And therefore, the Congress was very strong in the South. And therefore, its base held. That is why, clearly, in North India, it was completely different. And also, it was exaggerated. There's no question about that. Sterilization, once this thing spread, that they're forcibly castrating, sterilization and castration became almost synonymous. I've heard people, talking about it when I was, covering the emergency, during the emergency. So, it is something which wasn't there in the South. And that is why you had this stark contrast.
Okay, Dr. Mishra, a lot of people are saying that the BJP has repitched the emergency debate because they think that it's high time they counter properly the constitution debate, which created a mini surprise for BJP in 2024 election because they ended up with 99 seats.
कार्तिकेय जी, सबसे बड़ी समस्या क्या है कांग्रेस की? कांग्रेस को इतिहास से बहुत डर लगता है। जब भी हम इतिहास की कोई बात ला करके कांग्रेस के सामने खड़ा करते हैं तो कांग्रेस उससे भागती बहुत है, क्योंकि कांग्रेस ने इतने कलंक और इतने पाप वाले काम कर रखे हैं कि जब उनका चेहरा उनके सामने आता है तो कहते हैं कि आप इतिहास की बात ना करो। अगर हम अपना इतिहास ही भूल जाएंगे तो हम देश का भविष्य क्या बनाएंगे? मेरे कांग्रेस के साथी पूछ रहे हैं, मैं उनसे पूछना चाहूंगा, जब एडीएम जबलपुर और शिवाकांत शुक्ला का जो केस हुआ था उसमें जस्टिस एचआर खन्ना को बाईपास करते हुए उनसे 3 जूनियर एचएमबी को क्यों बना दिया गया था? इसका कोई जवाब है? शाह कमीशन की रिपोर्ट आई थी जिसमें कांग्रेस को की सरकार को इंदिरा गांधी को गिल्टी क्रिएट माना गया था और ये क्लियर कट उसका वर्डिक्ट था कि जो इमरजेंसी लगाई गई थी वो पर्सनल गेन्स के लिए लगाई गई थी, उसमें कोई क्राइसिस सिचुएशन नहीं थी, उसको उन्होंने डंप कर दिया। इंदिरा गांधी ने उस समय ऐसे कानून बनाए जिसमें उन्होंने अपनी पोस्ट को जुडिशियल रिव्यू के बियॉन्ड कर दिया। ये क्यों कर दिया? किसकी बात कर रहे हैं? आज राहुल गांधी लाल किताब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की लेके घूमते हैं और उसी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की रक्षा करने की बात करते हैं। इन्होंने तो पिछले 75 सालों में सबसे ज्यादा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को रौदा इन्होंने 90 बार से ज्यादा अमेंडमेंट इन्होंने किया है। सबसे ज्यादा बार इन्होंने स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की सरकारों को गिराया है। इंदिरा जी ने अकेले शायद 28 या 30 बार गिराया सरकारों को। तो आप देखिए बात, और जो मेरे मित्र कांग्रेस के बोल रहे हैं वो बहुत सारी बातों को इमरजेंसी से कंपेयर करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। आज डे इमरजेंसी का है और ये जो बातें उन्होंने कोट की, उन सारी बातों को कोट करते हुए 2014 से लेकर 2024 के इलेक्शन तक हर बार गए हैं और राहुल गांधी जी की लीडरशिप में 90 बार हारे हैं। इसका ये मतलब है कि जनता को उनकी बात ये नहीं समझ में आ रही है। क्योंकि जनता इमरजेंसी की क्राइसिस को, इमरजेंसी के अत्याचार को नहीं भूली है। कांग्रेस के कॉले
मिश्रा जी, मेरे पास वक्त कम है, एक बार क्लोजिंग, आपने अपनी बात कह दी, वक्त कम है, क्लोजिंग कमेंट लेना चाहूंगा मैं कांग्रेस के प्रवक्ता से। मिस्टर खाटियार, आई एम रियली रनिंग शॉर्ट ऑफ टाइम, यू नो, आई लेट यू हैव द क्लोजिंग
प्लीज। See, number one, we have all seen how the journalists have been arrested, the ones that were doing honest and truthful reportings vis-a-vis the government on their failures, on their blunders.
But so there's a difference between being arrested under the due process of law. I didn't interrupt you last time, but being arrested after habeas corpus was suspended. So habeas corpus was suspended during emergency. Your basic fundamental rights were snatched. You had no legal prima facie existence. I mean, so everything was taken away from you. I mean, so what happens right now? You can go to the court, sir. You can go to Supreme Court, lower court, High Court. You had no option available during emergency. There is a difference there, sir.
There is another difference here. When the Bharatiya Janata Party arm twists the media, either our way or the highway, we have all seen how many channels have gone black. We have all seen how many channels have gone off the grid. We have seen how the journalists were put behind bars, how habeas corpus petitions are to be filed, and how the Bharatiya Janata Party's government conveyed a message that either you'd have to do it according to our way, otherwise there would be action against you. Number two, the Bharatiya Janata Party ought to tell us another thing. Special parliament session on the Pahalgam issue, none has been called. We have all seen, despite the country demanding it. Third, all-party meeting, Mr. Modi skipped it. We have all seen. The last thing. See, the white paper on July 2nd, 1975 was tabled. Why emergency? Where all the details were given, number one. Number two, on August 22, 1975 and on November 11, 1975, MD Deoras, the RSS Sarsang Chalak, he praised Indira Gandhi ji and he offered cooperation of the RSS. Number four, on November 9, 1975, the Nani Palkhiwala ji called the judgment of the Allahabad High Court erroneous. Number 5, 1980.
I'm really sorry. I've really run short of time. But this is not about individuals. This is not about individuals. I think the broad stroke or the big picture is emergency reflected the worst strain of the Indian democratic tradition, whereby people who were elected to power subverted it for their personal ends. I think that's the worst part. And the subversion took place in a way that it spawned dynasties all across regional parties. Today, one strain of that politics is that every regional party is a house-run party. And my take at the end of this conversation, I don't think I can even match what Ajay and Surya said, because they actually covered emergency, they suffered emergency, they understood emergency, they lived through emergency, that it should be treated as a warning signal that democracy is if you can keep it. And we were not able to keep and cherish democracy between 75 to 77, and it should never happen, and that should be accepted. There is no excuse for whether it had good effect or bad effect. It corrupted, disrupted our democratic system, and it subverted our constitution. And on this note, I end my first on point, but don't go away, because in the second on point, we will look at how Pentagon report has busted Donald Trump's bunker buster claim, but after a short break.
A deep dive into what matters to you the most. Angles you won't find anywhere else. News that impacts your life.